This is the Fantasy Football Game Plan, where we talk about fantasy football and the NFL.
So yeah, the reason why I'm bald is I shaved my head. That's the answer.
Oh, right.
I mean, I'm
Well, it looks good.
follically challenged anyways, and I just figured if there was ever a good time to see what I look like bald, it would be during COVID time.
So the NFL rookie draft was over a week ago. I guess it ended last Saturday.
Yeah.
So over a week to kind of analyze and take a look at where teams sit, what new, what's happening, what's shaking.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, really. All of that trading around. Everybody knew what was going to happen at number 1 and number 2. But the question was, who were the Niners going to take at number 3? And that was sort of when the dominoes started to fall after Trey Lance went to the 49ers, because, what people were saying is, are they going to take Mac Jones? They had Justin Fields. They had all kinds of guys they could have taken. And they went Trey Lance. So now, how long is it going to be before he takes Jimmy G's job? A lot of questions there.
I like Trey Lance. I think he's going to be a solid kid in the NFL. I hope he gets a starting chance. Jimmy G might go down. I'm gonna need somebody back to back him up. Didn't they also pick up a running back too, like in the second or third?
Yeah, the 49ers, I was going to talk about him, so thanks for keying that up. So Trey Sermon is the guy's name. And not too many people are talking about him, but I thought he is worth talking about because Coleman's gone and McKinnon's gone.
Yeah.
And we all know that the 49ers running backs get hurt constantly. I mean, Mostert's fantastic, but I think it's Eric Wilson Jr. had some good snaps last year, but with Coleman gone and McKinnon gone, I think you got to look at Sermon, in the Shanahan system.
Yep.
Mostert's great, but he always gets hurt. So this guy will probably have a few great games for you. If you got Mostert, you got to get his backup. So you need all the 49er running backs, I think. You can't really depend on Mostert to be your number 1 and to ride him the whole year.
Yeah, I think this team is going to be pretty solid in a run game, as well as I'm not too sure about the receivers, but definitely I think this running back with and if Trey Lance does get a start would be an interesting addition and make the 49ers, a pretty interesting and fun team to watch. They are in a really tough division though. Going up against Seattle, Arizona, and LA. So, let's see how they do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the 49ers offense because they can move the ball. They're a good team. They have a good system. The thing for me is when it comes to drafting time, like I think that there are going to be a lot of guys on that team during the season that you're going to want to stream, depending on injuries, depending on buys, depending on matchups. But when it comes to draft day, I'm not really sure, other than Kittle, you want to have Kittle, I'm not sure if I draft any of these guys. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not worth something, but like how long till Trey Lance plays? Is he going to steal the job in camp? Are they going to work him into the lineup halfway through the year? Are they going to play him till Jimmy G goes down? And he will go down.
Yep.
What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah. I guess with the 49ers, it's something to see, but I actually really like this quarterback, what I saw on film and how he just has the presence and his statue just himself. So I'm excited for the 49ers. I think they're gonna be great.
Okay, so staying in that division,
okay,
can you please explain to me, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, what's the one position that you don't need? Or rather, what's the best, strongest position? Now, keep in mind, Seattle
wide receiver.
Seattle had 3 picks for the whole draft.
And you pick a wideout.
And
yeah.
the first thing they do is they pick a wide receiver, which is the one thing that they don't need.
Yeah, I know. I think everybody was kind of confused about that. Like the kid is probably a good receiver, but it was just weird because I don't even think they had a pick to the third round. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like they missed 64 plus 17, whatever that is, right? Whatever pick that they had. And I think like all the squabble was, protect Russell Wilson so he's not running around so much.
Uh-huh.
And that at that point there was probably still a ton of tackles or guards.
Yeah.
I think like the Bears picked up a couple of like offensive linemen in the 5th round.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I mean, they had 3 picks for the whole draft. The whole draft. And they went receiver. So now what are they going to do? I mean, if Russell Wilson was unhappy before because he was getting hit all the time because he's the most sacked guy in the league, what's he going to be now? I mean, they drafted a DB. Okay, they did in the 6th round, they drafted Stone Forsythe, an offensive tackle. So one guy.
Yeah, but 6th round, like that's just that kid could not even make the team.
Well, he might be able to make that team.
Hey, there's a lot of good 6th rounders that have come out of the NFL. All I'm thinking is, build. I don't know. Build what you need to protect, and it. They could have picked up a running back too if they wanted to, because I think Sony Michel has left or retired or something like that. Did I hear?
No, they didn't pick. The New England didn't pick up his 5th-year option.
That's what it was.
So they drafted a running back, but they just don't like to pay guys. So Sony Michel, he'd had a pretty good career to that point, but now it's time to sign him into a veteran deal or draft a rookie so you can pay him nothing. And so they're going to let him walk, and they're just going to draft a rookie so that they don't have to pay him. They paid a lot of people in this offseason, and there's no money left over to pay Sony Michel, really.
Right. Talking about the Patriots, though, it's quite interesting how Mac Jones fell so far down, and they were able to pick him up. But what did they have? The 12th or the 15th pick or something?
Yeah, 15. I'm surprised that he fell and that they didn't have to move around the board to pick him up. I think he's a good guy for their system, but he's probably not a great guy for all those other systems. The other teams really need mobile quarterbacks. New England, they've got their offense. We've all seen their offense and what they like to do, and they do have Cam Newton. If they want to run it in on the 1-yard line, they can let Cam do that.
Yeah, when you build your offense in the offseason to have an offensive line dominant crew, picking up somebody like Matt Jones just makes sense because you have you could play 3 tight ends if you want.
Yeah, well, they let Joe Tunney walk, so he's on Kansas City now, and he's a great guard. But he went for top dollar. He's, I think, the top paid guard in the league. They're not going to.
Yeah, but didn't they pick up a guard as well too, like way late in the draft too? So they got somebody to replace him.
They got an offensive tackle, Will Sherman, and they've got guys on their roster that have been around for a while. Yeah, I think New England will be okay on the O-line. It's just that, looking at their offense last year, and I don't know what they're going to run next year. I really don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. And again, the Patriots with their running backs, they're a nightmare also. Even they have good tight ends, but they have 2 of them. So fantasy wise, it's the same. I'll stream some of those guys during the season when I know what's up, but I'm not going to draft one of my top. I only get 16 players on my team. I'm not going to take anyone from New England because you know, that's the Swiss Army knife approach. They 1 week a guy's featured, the next week he's a blocker, you know. And
Yeah.
hey, speaking of blockers, the Detroit Lions, all these other teams are drafting some pretty crazy fantasy players, and they drafted a blocker. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I was probably super excited. I was holding my daughter in my arms and I was saying, pick defense or pick O-line. Pick defense and pick O-line. And
Okay.
they went with a guy that was pretty highly you know, he was pretty highly recognized.
Yeah.
Penny Sewell, I believe his name is.
Penny
Sewell?
Sewell, I think. Penny Sewell, I think. I think that's how you
Sewell.
say it. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out.
But I saw this the other day, the ticker, and they ranked Detroit 32 in the league. So
Yeah.
there's nowhere to go but up with the power ranking as of May 5th.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a steep climb. But they got rid of Keon Johnson. He went to the Eagles.
Right. So
because
beware if you're a Miles. But
Miles Sanders.
Yeah. So if you're a Miles Sanders owner, heads up, because you know they drafted a running back and they brought in a guy to share carries as well.
Right, but Keon is notorious for being injured. He's a good blocking back though, so like he'll be really good there to help out Hurst.
Carry on Johnson, the blocker. So they got another blocker, two blockers.
Okay, so what really makes this interesting on the Detroit team is that Swift may be a really standout guy this year for fantasy. So their RB1 would be DeAndre Swift. So potentially look at him at picking him up as your RB2. I would think he would be getting at least 20 touches a game.
Yeah, that sounds right, because I don't know who else they're going to give the ball to.
Well, they do have another running back that they picked up in the draft as well too, really late in the round or whatever. Who knows? Maybe he comes out
Jamar Jefferson.
Right. He comes out and breaks tackles, and you know does whatever he wants to do. I'm just saying, Swift should be one of your RB2. Pick him up in the third. Pick him up in the fourth. I think he's someone to have on your roster. What they've done to the offensive line, they put all the money into the offensive line. They probably will be doing the same thing what New England is going to do and just like run the ball, right? Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
Yeah. I was looking at the Jets. They drafted a running back.
Jets.
I know. Normally they're horrible, but they have a new coach. They have a new O-line. They're running the Shanahan system. They brought in Mike LaFleur. So he's a Shanahan disciple, and you know that's a pretty good system for points in fantasy. They drafted a running back because they don't really have one, and the guy's name is Michael Carter.
Yep. And
I think you're talking about an RB2 for Detroit, and I think this guy might go under the radar quite a bit because the Jets aren't a sexy team to draft. Nobody knows who this guy is. So this Michael Carter guy, he's probably going to be the starter.
Well, if you think about it, if you have a rookie quarterback, you can't depend on Zack Wilson, to run around like he did in college. You're going to have to like tire defenses out. It's a whole different game. So Carter, running up against Tevin Coleman or something like that, whoever else is on that team.
They just don't really have a lot of names there. So I think, when fantasy is all about opportunity and about touches, right? Yeah. So, if this guy's going to get a whole bunch of touches, they're going to be running a good system. And yeah, like you said, they got a rookie quarterback. So, they need to run the ball. I'm thinking, this Carter guy would be a really good under the radar pick.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good piece of advice there. What about the running back for Pittsburgh? The guy that went like the first running back off the board,
Najah Harris. Najah Harris. So, I mean, There's
I think he's
two.
going to be a pickup. I think he's should be on your team. See
Well,
what he does.
all right. Who was the worst team in the football league last year at running the football? What's the answer to that question?
Pittsburgh
Yes,
Steelers,
the
but
Pittsburgh
they
Steelers.
had a
And,
small guy.
well, they had a small guy. They also had Villanueva, who's gone, and a Pouncey brother, who's gone. And so on their offensive line, they basically have got a bag of hammers. I mean, they like to throw the quick passes to all their studly receivers, and Ben likes to throw now. That's his thing, and he can't throw far. So, but they can't. I mean, I think Najah Harris is a great draft. I just think that they've got to do a better job of setting him up to succeed. On a different team, I think he'd be amazing. And he'll probably get a few touchdowns. So I think he's worth having. But I don't have him as a top 10 guy because Pittsburgh can't block.
Yeah, it's true. So they are in a tough division with Baltimore with a big heavy D, and same with Cincinnati. So if you already count 4 games out there, and then anyone else you come up against.
Yeah, and they're going to be losing, so they're going to throw. Because even their defense, they've lost some key pieces off their defense. So their number one defense isn't going to be back next year.
Well, the number one defense kind of fell through the cracks last year in week 11.
Yeah.
Right? Remember they were like the best thing since the Dolphins, like 72 or whatever. Then they basically fell apart for some reason.
Yeah. Well, they weren't on the field when Pouncey snapped the ball over Ben's head in the playoffs. I mean, you can't really blame them for all their. I mean, their offense just. I mean, if you can get inside the 10, you should be able to score. I mean, Pittsburgh they just couldn't run the. I couldn't get 1 yard on the ground, so they were just hopeless. The defense is, defense to win championships, but when you're playing against a good balanced team like Cleveland, I mean, you gotta bring all facets of your game, and if you have no running game and you're turning the ball over.
Okay. So to talk about Cleveland, it seemed like they were always on the clock. Like, did they have like 12 draft picks this 2021 season? Like, it just seemed.
I got 8 on my screen. I think they had 8 picks. Well, they just like to use all of their time deciding. Fantasy-wise, they didn't really get anybody that's relevant. They got a receiver, Anthony Schwartz, and another guy named Demetric Felton, and that those are the 4th and 5th best receivers at best on that team. So
Yeah, they're pretty stacked clubs, so they don't need help from the rookies at this time. So
yeah.
good job on them.
Well, one of the things that I just wanted to bring up, just because I thought that this would be fun to say, that the Buffalo Bills drafted Big Bad Boogie Basham. And I thought, yeah, I think that's worth mentioning. I don't know who else they got that's fantasy relevant. They didn't draft a running back. They needed to do that, and they didn't do that. So that's great if you're a Josh Allen owner or a Stephon Diggs owner. But yeah, draft-wise, they just got Big Bad Boogie Basham. That's all I wanted to say on them.
Didn't he jump through a table after he got drafted?
I hope so. I'd have to.
He totally did. He totally did.
Okay.
So like the guy gets drafted, and then he does like a WWF like classic Buffalo Bills fan, and puts himself through like a collapsible table. And the scout, his like agent was like, I have no control of what he does. It's just so awesome. It just shows you the maturity you are when you are 22 years old and about to make the most money that you have ever seen in your life, or
Yeah.
so it's good. It's fun. I like that. I like to see that clown, but geez, like at the same time too, like you
Giving
don't want to
people
throw
fits.
your shoulder out.
Another surprise that I really found it hard to believe. There's lots of teams that needed quarterbacks, and somehow Justin Fields ends up with the Bears, and teams like the 49ers, pass on him. And I think, these QBs coming out now, I think of all the rookies, I think I'd want him the most. I know you liked Trey Lance.
Yep.
And I assume one of the reasons is because he can run the ball. But Trever Lawrence, sure, he was the number one overall, and he's going to be great. But in terms of fantasy, he's probably more like a Justin Herbert type of a guy.
Yep.
But I think the Bears have drafted a QB that, this guy's going to get yards with his legs. And in fantasy, if you can get a QB running, as much as he's throwing, then you really got something. If you look at the Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray model, this guy could possibly be outstanding. And he really doesn't have any competition, playing for the Bears. I mean, he's going to win that job, and he's going to be great.
Yeah, they have Dalton as a solid back, and someone to train him and give him that insight that he needs. And it's interesting. The Bears have jumped up in their ranking for sure with just that one pick, and they did a very ballsy move in getting him. And great job for the Bears. I wish them all the best.
Said the Detroit Lions guy.
Yeah, no way.
I would draft him though. I wouldn't draft him as my number one quarterback, but I would draft him as my number two. I mean, I think right away he's going to be relevant.
Well, okay, so I think one of the strongest defenses in the league right now will be Indianapolis. I think if you had a chance to pick a defense on your 8th or 9th ladder, I think whoever they, I think they're going to be a pretty solid defensive squad this year, and a pretty tough team actually in general to get a squeak by W. I'm just saying, if you need a defense, those guys might squeak through as a sleeper, because they haven't been really. I'm sure people know about them, but I think with that team there. But
they're talented, but you know what I don't think is right in fantasy? I don't think that if Wentz throws a pick six, I don't think it should count against the Colts D. It's not their fault if they're not on the field when the points are scored. I don't think we should hold that against them, but that's the way they score it. So, okay, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to play? I'll just ask you: is he going to play, and is he going to play for the Packers?
I don't know how to answer that question because I'm not a Jeopardy host, but I think he's like I read this the other day. A pretty girl that just needs to be telling that she's pretty. Like,
I heard Bradshaw the other day talking about what a whiner Aaron Rodgers was. He's like, when I was quarterback, 4 different years they drafted another quarterback at number 1, and he just said, I didn't care because I knew they weren't going to be better than me and they weren't going to get my job. So I thought that was a pretty interesting. Those quarterbacks don't usually attack each other. They both wear number 12. And you think Terry would have been a little bit sticking up for the brotherhood there, but no, he was just like saying that Rodgers was being whiny. And I was reading an article the other day, and they were talking about how Tom Brady ruined it for everybody because now Russell Wilson wants to be in charge of, personnel, Aaron Rodgers wants to throw his weight around. The thing is, those guys signed multi-year deals, and they have no leverage at all. Whereas Brady signed a deal where he said, "You can't tag me. I'm a free agent after the end of the year. If I don't like what you're doing, I can walk." So now, Wilson, he's not going to retire. I think you said a couple of weeks ago, he's still going to be with the Seahawks. And so I wanted to see what you thought of this Aaron Rodgers situation, because if he does what you said and retires and hosts Jeopardy and all that stuff, he's got to pay back millions because he signed this big long deal and he's taken a lot of the money already. So it's hard for me to imagine them paying back millions of dollars just, on an ego trip. I know he'll make money, being the Jeopardy host if they offer him that gig. But I
think the guy from Reading Rainbow will get that job instead of Rodgers.
Okay.
Or Dr. Phil's son.
Dr. Phil's son?
Oz, Dr. Oz's son, I think.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Oz. Yeah, he had a trial run at that, and Katie Couric too. But I
really don't know how to answer this question. I don't think anyone does until I don't know. Are they even doing trainings, like training this year?
Yeah, there's a big thing right now where the players union and them saying we just don't need to go this hard in the off season. Brady said that in the MLB there's no pitcher that's throwing a 95 an hour fastball in the off season, and he doesn't think that the NFL players should be going hard all year round because you got to recoup. And he's sort of calling for solidarity amongst the NFLPA to stick to their mandate and just not have to practice so much until training camp. Once training camp comes in, then they got a schedule and they'll figure out how to do it fairly. But I think Rodgers won't show up for any of the off-season stuff. But in the end, I think he does play, and he plays for Green Bay. And I think he's just going to be just so happy that everybody's going to be talking about him and wondering what he's going to do until then. But I think his plan ultimately is he's going to show up and just keep being a diva. I mean, I agree with him that they should have drafted somebody to make their team better instead of somebody to take his job in 5 years from now. They could have used one extra player in that NFC title game.
Yeah, but Favre was crushing beers and not caring that Rodgers was on the bench for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like when they picked him up, like Favre was just doing what he was doing, throwing interceptions and just running around like a madman and doing his Hall of Fame football type of moves. And then they're like, "Okay, your turn, Aaron." And Aaron's like, "Okay, coach."
Rodgers learned under Favre, and Favre threatened to retire every year. And so, and so now Rodgers,
helicopters would fly over his house.
Yeah.
What's he doing this year?
Right.
It would be like,
so Rodgers remembers that and probably felt quite jealous and thought, I want that. So now he wants the helicopters.
Yeah.
And he's
like
a Hollywood starlet, so he's going to be on all the magazines.
I like it. It's drama. You know what? It keeps my wife interested in football.
One of the teams I'm really curious about is the Eagles. They drafted Devonte Smith, and I don't know if he's a number one right out of the gate. I know there's concerns about his size, and they got Rieger last year, so they've got these two young, fast, kind of small receivers that, I mean, on paper it looks pretty good, but I just don't know.
Run through the middle a couple times and tell me how good you feel.
Yeah, and I don't know about his quarterback yet either. I just don't know what the Eagles are going to be. I think Washington's gotten better. I think Dallas is going to be a lot better because of all those draft picks that they spent on defense, because that's their problem. I
Yeah,
think
and they
that the
get the quarterback back.
Giants, the Giants and Philly are just going to fight it out for last place, and it's going to go down to the wire.
Yes, the beloved AFC
No, NFC
NFC
least.
East.
NFC least
Yeah,
is what they call it.
It's the most talked about football division in football. The team I am not too interested in is the Miami Dolphins,
Okay,
and
well, they got a good receiver.
great. So let's see if the quarterback can. Oh wait, Fitzpatrick can't help the guy out anymore.
Yeah,
So let's. So,
it's Tua. It's Tua time.
but that's what I mean. But he has no one to like bail him out when he's like on this second quarter and he hasn't, shaken off his cornflakes from the morning. I don't know. I'm not interested in that whole team, top to bottom.
They
I don't
didn't
think
draft a running back, which was
know.
really surprising because the guy they've got, Gaskin's really small.
Maybe Sean, I'll be interested in picking up their defense. That's about it.
Well, Waddle, yeah, this year. I think, down the line, Waddle might be good.
Yeah. I think give that guy a chance and see what his quarterback can throw him.
Yeah.
Right. And he did go really high in the draft, so it'd be interesting like that to see where that Waddle falls into fantasy. But he's a wide receiver, and like you have stated in the last episode,
Mm-hmm.
wide receivers are people can do that position, and you really want to
Can always find a guy.
Yeah, you want to focus somewhere else, especially if you're not in a keeper league and you need to make sure that you have your draft picks up there to get you fantasy points, which includes touchdowns and field goals, right, Sean? Field goals.
A field goal is your favorite thing. I mean, I said they didn't draft a running back. It looks like here they drafted a guy in the 7th round with their last pick, 244th overall, Jared Dokes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 244 pounds. It's not a
No.
running back. It's like an offensive guard playing fullback.
No, he. So they did draft one, but he wasn't a highly touted guy, and he's coming out of Cincinnati University. So I don't know. Don't know anything about him, but
so who in your mind? Who in your mind won like the draft? Like who did you think like you're like, oh yeah, I think they had a very solid draft?
Well, I think we talked before about wanting to see where the tight end Pitts was going to land.
Falcons.
And so he landed with the Falcons. And so there was a lot of talk about, are they going to get a QB to replace Matty Ice? And so the fact that they were smart and they got somebody who can help them right now instead of doing the Green Bay thing and drafting a guy to replace your quarterback that you like. They now have, Julio Jones. They've got the only question.
Ridley. They have Ridley.
They do have Calvin Ridley. Shouldn't have left him out. But they have Pitts now. But Mike Davis is really their only option at running back. And when we were talking before, I said for sure they were going to draft a running back, and they didn't. I think they had a pretty good draft, but I don't know who their backup running back's going to be. But I would look at him seriously. If Mike Davis is your running back, you better take his handcuff, whoever that's going to be on that team, because he's going to get some carries. It's just that nobody knows who that person is right now. But I think the Falcons now have a huge threat at all the receiving positions and a decent running back. I think Davis is better than Gurley was last year, and they've got 2 good tight ends, but Pitts is supposed to be phenomenal. So with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, I mean, wow. Look out for Atlanta's offense this year, because Matty Ice has got people to throw to and hand the ball off to.
Nice.
How about you? Who do you think really helped themselves?
Well, I think the Lions did a phenomenal job picking up the players that they needed to. They picked up 2 defensive line guys. They picked up Penny Swell.
The team that everybody says did the best is the Bears. That seems to be what people are saying. That's the team that made themselves. They took the biggest leap during the draft. This is the
Right.
Bears. A lot of people like the Bears draft, and I heard some people talking about Minnesota, but I don't think they got enough defensive players to improve their playoff chances next year. Okay, well, I'll just ask you then. Just to summarize a little bit, maybe some of the top guys at each position that you would consider drafting on your 16-player fantasy team. Some of the rookies, not 1 year or 2 years down the line. Who do you think this year of the rookies you would want to jump on in a draft situation this season? I'm thinking Justin Fields. As I was saying earlier, Justin Fields, I would take him as my quarterback number 2 because you need to have more than one QB in fantasy. I think he could make a big splash right out of the gate. And I think that that Carter guy.
I think that Jamar Chase hanging out with Joe Burrows.
Yeah,
I think that would be
you would draft him.
Solid pick.
You would draft him.
I would draft him.
Okay, I would. And Pitts, we like Pitts, the tight end, right?
Yes. And maybe a Charger, believe it or not, Josh Palmer, a wide receiver. Behind Allen and Williams, I think he will be fitting in at some point.
But I wouldn't even draft Mike Williams again. I mean, I've talked about him before. I mean, Justin Herbert only likes to throw to one guy, Keenan Allen. He doesn't,
Right.
And then he'll dump some passes off to Eckler, and that's it. He doesn't share that football. Maybe things will change in the future, but I question that. I question that. Najah Harris, I think, is draftable, but not as your number 1 back. He could be a flex or a 2. And I'm really surprised that Jacksonville took Etienne because they had James Robinson. They still have him. But now I think neither one of those guys is draftable. Who's going to play? I don't know. Is Robinson? I mean, Robinson was so good last year.
Yeah,
And
super sleeper too.
Yeah,
And whoever picked him up, would have. They actually were running for gold for the first couple of weeks until people adjusted their roster accordingly.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. So Jamar Chase, Najee Harris, Pitts, the tight end for Atlanta. Those are our Justin Fields, and maybe Trey Lance. Those are our favorite. Those are our favorite picks from this year's draft that are rosterable in fantasy this year.
I think so. I think there's a lot to tell too coming down as we figure things out and we start hearing more from the broadcast booth of how teams are shaping up and where people are going.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of valuable fantasy depth out there from this rookie draft. It's just I think it might take a while for some of these guys to be relevant. There was one more guy I wanted to mention, the running back for the Broncos, Javonte Williams.
Okay.
So I think he'll contribute, and he could be a low number 2 or a flex player. He'd be worth drafting. I think he'll compete this year.
Is Lindsey still on that team? Or is
no, Lindsey walked. They let Lindsey walk.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
drafted this guy in his stead. So, he's going to be sharing time with, name escapes me, the other running back for Denver. He'll be sharing time as a starter and eventually probably winning out that job. So, if you can take him as a 2 or a 3, he'd be worth rostering and drafting, especially if you do have a keeper league. because they've got to pay the other guy next year, and I don't know if they will.
Right.
But this guy will be on a rookie deal still. So
Who's their QB?
yeah, I know. But
Maybe that's why you pick up the running back.
yeah, I think so. Teddy Bridgewater, right? I mean,
I hope Teddy
he's okay.
Bridgewater. I hope Teddy Bridgewater never gets the respect that he deserves. That guy is seriously a solid, smart football player that has proven himself time and time again.
Yeah,
For 3 different teams. I wish him the best in the Denver, Colorado.
yeah. I think he'll win the job.
Yeah.
You know,
It's crazy how no one respects that guy. And that guy's he's talented. He's shown himself so many times of a good demeanor he is and a good football player. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's been through a lot and shown like he's resilient. You know, that injury that he came back from.
Yeah.
Is it's impressive that anybody, could come back from something like that. But he doesn't get the respect he deserves, and I guess they'll draft a QB next year, so he'll start this year and he'll play the same role that he played in Carolina the year before, till they find somebody. Because I don't think Drew Lock is the guy. I am just trying to search for that other Denver running back. Okay, Melvin Gordon is the guy I was trying to think of. Melvin.
Oh, Gordon! Didn't he play for the Chargers?
He did a while ago, but he's a great goal line back.
Wasn't he the only rookie not to score a touchdown ever?
Maybe, but then he became
and then the second year he became
fantasy player. Yeah.
Yes, second year he became the stud of all studs.
Yeah. Well, that just shows that the team didn't know how to use him.
Yeah.
And I think he'll still be their main back this year, but Williams will win out the job eventually, especially because of the fact that Gordon gets hurt a lot. So. And then, if you can hang on to him, then next year he'll be your starter there.
Right.
Okay. Well, so you said that the schedule's coming out on Wednesday. So that gives us something to look at and discuss for next week.
Yep.
And waiting. There's a lot of talk about the Belichick versus Brady showdown. Apparently, Tampa's going to New England. So I want to see what week that is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. What temperature?
Yeah, it'll be in New England, but it depends what time of year.
That's what I mean. That's what I was saying. What temperature are they playing in? Are they playing in?
Well,
where are they playing in?
I would say Brady knows how to throw in Gillette more than Cam Newton or Mac Jones.
Oh yeah.
That'll just be a game on the tour, the Tampa Bay tour that's coming up.
Well, good on the NFL to make sure that game happens, but I guess the schedule is always set like years and years in advance because they always kind of.
Well, this year they got the week 17, so like when what are they going to do? Are they just going to slap on that 17 for the last game of the year, or are they going to still have the key interdivision matchups played for the last 3-4 games of the year like they've been doing, because division titles come down to the wire and all that. I don't see why they'd stop doing that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I also heard too that like Thursday Night Football might only be on Amazon Prime next year. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't. I thought they were going to get rid of Thursday Night Football. It's not good for the players. I just the guys get hurt.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah. 2022 season, I think the Thursday night is prime night, and so it won't even be, I guess, on ABC or whoever has Thursday Night Football right now. I don't know.
Why doesn't NFL Network show football games live? I mean, what's the point of having an NFL Network if you don't play NFL on it? I figured that was the plan long term. Eventually, they would show football games on the NFL Network. I mean, that seems to make sense to me. Why would you have an NFL Network and then have to pay Amazon or somebody else to carry your games? I don't don't get that. I don't know what they're doing with that, but I'd like to know.
League announced new agreement. Amazon Prime Video will be the exclusive home of the NFL Thursday Night Football beginning with the 2022 season. Amazon will distribute primetime second most watched show across hundreds of compatible digital devices.
Okay, you heard it here from Coach Powell.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I was the one that broke the news, but
You broke the news to me. I hadn't heard that.
so like now we're not well, like we talked about in the past. I subscribe to DAZN, the Zone app for my football watching.
Yeah,
I just hope that they are also able to pick up those games as well too. Because there's no point for spending your money on like a channel and you don't even get all the games, because then maybe I just have to switch it to Prime. Prime shows all the games.
I don't know. I think maybe we need advertisers to come on at this point and do a little plug.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott. We'll talk to you after the schedule is announced and share some thoughts and start getting ready for maybe some mock drafting. We got to pull together some dudes and let's start.
How many do we need?
Put together a list of
10?
I don't know. Well, I mean, to do a mock, we could do it with 5 or 6 guys.
Okay.
So let's maybe look at doing that, and we'll chat more about that next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Football Game Plan.